On Wednesdays, we like to take a deeper dive into some of the biggest games of the weekends, take you inside the matchup. Picks, that's for Thursday. This is when you get educated. We call it Big Game Breakdown. We begin with the showdown, noon Eastern time in Atlanta, the Aflac kickoff between Georgia and Clemson. We don't have to go that far back to find the last neutral site Southeastern-based kickoff game between these two. Played a real slobber knocker a couple years ago. Georgia winning that game close and low scoring. Danny, as we look at this one, there is the number one team in the country almost always goes out there and wins their season opener. Doesn't happen all that often that they're going to get tripped up along the way. Number one team is the number one team for a reason. So if you were to look at this one from Georgia, is there any reason to think that trend is going to break? What about the Georgia Bulldogs do you think we will learn from the matchup with Clemson?
I think you'll see a defense to be really good. I think you'll see an offense that is going to try to find an identity, post Brock Bowers, post Ladd McConkey. Like, that's what I'm most curious to see how it unfolds. And by the way, I think it'll be against a really good Clemson defense. Probably one of the better defenses they'll face. So, because I think we can trust Georgia, right? They've got a track record of being able to dominate almost anyone they've faced in the regular season so far. I would expect them to, have the edge along both lines of scrimmage. But I do think the challenge and the thing that I'm most watching to see, and how, if you were looking for a script of how this game would be close, I think it's Clemson's defense holding this Georgia offense in check while they're trying to figure out, is Trevor Etienne, is he playing, first of all?
Yeah.
What does he look like if he does? And they have weapons, but it's sort of who becomes, because I really felt like those were two security blankets for Carson Beck and Stetson Bennett before that. Like, I go back to the Auburn game on the road when it's kind of like, ooh, this doesn't look so good. And then all of a sudden, Brock Bowers, Carson Beck just starts finding him and just starts drilling, and it just opens up everything. I'm curious to see who that guy is for Georgia's offense.
For me, the biggest question mark for me going into this game, offensively, what can we realistically expect from Clemson against this Georgia team? I do think I have to see it before I come to any conclusions, but I have heard from a lot of people that have some questions about the front seven on Georgia's. Like, maybe it's not to the same kind of elite level that we're used to seeing, so maybe there's a little more wiggle room, although I still expect it'll probably be pretty dang good. My question, though, is, like Clemson last year on a down-to-down basis, if you look at success rate and stuff, they were good. They weren't great. But where they really suffered, and where my main concern is, which is at the quarterback position, is that, as far as explosive plays, they were awful. They had an explosive pass rate last season that ranked 121st in the nation at only 11.3%. And then they also really struggled. And again, I put this on the quarterback more than anything. Once they got into the red zone, they had trouble finishing drives. They scored 3.9 points per red zone possession last year. That ranked 115th. Maybe they improve that this season, but can I be optimistic that they're going to improve that in this game against this team? So I'm with you, Danny. If Clemson's going to stick around in this game and have a chance, defensively, they need to be on top of their game. They need to be limiting what Georgia does and keep this thing close. And hopefully, there's a mistake or a ball goes your way and you're able to take advantage of it. But if they get into a situation where they're going to have to score points, I feel like Georgia could, dog walk them.
Yeah, I'm really excited to watch this game because there's so many just different questions about roster building and construction and philosophy. Dabo deciding not to use the portal. Georgia used the portal for a large handful of guys this offseason. I'll start right in the middle. The guy that's going to touch the ball first. So Georgia lost Cedric Van Pran, who was one of the best centers in the country to the NFL draft. Their new guy, who they like a lot, from what I'm told, Jared Wilson, has been banged up in camp. So will he go? I assume so. How does he play? Clemson does have a really nasty defensive line, so that will matter. I think Georgia, is on the very short list of teams out there that could have the best offensive line in the country this year. I mean, I think Tom and Danny's point about replacing Brock Bowers is key. If you sort of isolate the games when Bowers was hurt last year, they relied heavily on Dom Lovett. I mean, he flew over his prop stuff. So is that sort of the safety blanket for or the safety valve for Carson Beck now? Possibly. Colby Young's been dinged up with, I think, a hamstring. So to me is like their big X on the outside they can use in the red zone. I don't know what his status will be for the game. Kirby Smart declined to comment on if Etienne, the running back who they got from Florida in the offseason, is going to be suspended for his offseason driving stuff. My guess is that he does not play. Branson Robinson.
Yeah.
My Branson Robinson is out because he's dinged up. Georgia recruits absolute studs at running back. So I'm not really worried about them running the football. I am a little curious about some of the pass pro stuff because Clemson will bring some funky blitzes, and some of the blitz pickup stuff for Georgia. Like if this doesn't go well for Georgia, it's probably, you got a pretty inexperienced running back in blitz pickup situations there. And maybe Beck gets his blind side and the ball cops out. Defensively, I think Georgia is really damn good on the edges of the defensive line. And I think their linebackers are total studs. You don't let, what's his name? Like the class 2 years ago that Georgia signed, I'm just telling you as a recruiting guy, they were physically, like materially different than any group of linebackers I've seen in a couple of years.
Is that Smale London's class?
No, it's the Wilson and the one kid from Georgia. There was like three of them, and they were all just like, whoa. So I do think there's a chance that Georgia has really, really good linebacker play. But interior defensive line, they've been really banged up, right? Brenson's had the Achilles. What's his name has had like the stress fractures in both legs. Can Clemson rush the football on these guys and really blow them off the ball on the interior? Because if they can't, I don't think you're going to win a side-to-side game necessarily against Georgia, but maybe you will because of tempo. Like Riley's more of a tempo guy normally. They were not crazy high tempo last year, probably because it's a new offense, but will Clemson crank the tempo up? Georgia's got a lot of new pieces in the secondary. I'm curious to see how those pieces mesh. Can you create some bust there? I don't know, but if Clemson can't run the football against the Georgia interior defensive line, which I think is a little bit down, partially due to injuries, then I think Clemson could be in trouble because I don't really trust Cade Klubnik to drop back 40 times if he has to. But I think Clemson's receivers are a hell of a lot better than they've been. Last year,
healthier.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's the point. Like last year, they sucked, but they also were really dinged up a lot of times. Like the guys they were running out there was like, oh, these aren't Clemson receivers. Yeah, they're in the training room. So, we'll see how much better they can be. The other key factor here is that Clemson may have 0, 1, or 2 of their starting corners for this game. Like, I don't know if Lewis and Lucas are going to play. My guess here is that they have one of the two. That's how I'm currently handicapping the game. But because they don't use the transfer portal, if they're down both, you will see true freshmen starting at corner for Clemson against Georgia. And that would be a problem for me.
You mentioned how the offense looked last year when they didn't have Brock Bowers. You know what else was different about the offense when Brock Bowers didn't play? They ran the ball better because they had Oscar Delp in there coming across on those split zones, just knocking dudes to the next level and opening up huge lanes for their running backs.
Having a huge camp, I heard.
Mm-hmm. So, of course he is. He's an awesome player.
Dogs 247 on top of the news for us always. So he's a good player, man.
Any concern about Clemson's true freshman kicker? Dabo does have a lot of field goal attempts in the way he calls red zone opportunities.
Okay, yeah, you know what? That's a good point. I have two concerns about the red zone offense: the quarterback and the guy making the calls.
I think Cade's going to have to run. I think they're going to run Cade. There has been a lot of I'm working on a Cade Klubnik story for Friday. There's a lot of conversation around the program about this. This just has to be on Cade to make the right reads and not make the boneheaded turnover. I mean, this is what
comps help him.
We'll see. Dabo says it's great. That he's the coaching staff at Clemson has loved practicing it, and they believe that this is something that can really help. But the making the right read, getting out there, not having the boneheaded turnover. This is a Clemson team that led the nation in fumbles lost. It was and so many of those were red zone or third down plays. Ball security. It just seems like as I've been digging deeper and deeper on this on the Clemson side of things, everyone's like, it's right there. Cade just has to translate it. Like he just has to go out there. The key to unlocking Cade Klubnik is not Garrett Riley. The key to unlocking Cade Klubnik is Cade Klubnik going out there and just making the right decisions, because they are counting on him to use his legs, and he is athletic and he can do that kind of stuff that Trevor or Deshaun did, where you make that right read because you see space. That's a first down. It keeps a drive alive. So I'm very curious. I mean, you mentioned how good Georgia is on the outside. Like maybe that goes horribly and he makes the wrong reads and gets crushed. But I think that that's going to be key. I think that will be a needed counterpart to the inside run game with Phil Maffa, who apparently is going to be a workhorse, because it's not like we've got a super deep backfield right now. Not really an obvious, tandem. He had that whole Thunder Lightning thing going with Will Shipley last year. It sounds like it is going to be Maffa, running, being the bell cow for sure.
Can we get like a quote graphic of Chip out of context saying that Cade can do the stuff that Trevor and Deshaun could do? Because I just want to tweet that repeatedly during the season. Whenever Cade Klubnik screws up.
Question for you guys. More confidence in improvement from Klubnik, or more confidence in improvement from Clemson's receivers?
Receivers.
Totally.
Yeah,
I don't trust Klubnik at all. I think the
I'm not a
receivers
big
have a chance
Klubnik
to be
fan.
good.
I just hope for every Clemson fan's sake that you don't see this, where the helmet communications and he just turns back and he goes like this. You see those NFL quarterbacks every once in a while. They'll be like, no, I got this. No.
Did you see Kelsey wave off the Jalen Hurts audible?
Ooh, I did not.
I saw it on Twitter this morning. Like he's like, no,
What, last year, I guess?
Yeah.
No. What I said is Cade is basically Trevor and Deshaun put together.
Yeah.
And more.
But better.
Yeah,
Clip
but
it,
better.
graphic, put it out.
Cade Klubnik is basically Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson with a Johnny Manziel on top. Yeah. That's basically what I'm expecting. It would be great news if Bryant Wesco comes out and has a huge game. We'll see.
Would be nice for them, yes.
Remaining questions on them. Is Clemson's offensive line better with Matt Luke coaching it? Is one I got. And
I think he's a really good coach.
I think he's a really good coach. I think that their player availability on the offensive line might be a little
problematic.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. The other one there is, did they move Peter Woods to defensive end because they think he can he's awesome there, and they have so much surplus depth at D tackle, or because Clemson maybe is finally not rolled perfectly with DN recruiting and lack the guys they need there? Like, I'm going to be watching that closely. Like, is Woods actually good at that spot, or does Clemson just not have DNs finally?
Both, and they're even looking at those talented defensive tackles and hoping that they're going to be better later in the year. That they're not.
Capehart can play. Like,
but I'm talking about Burley.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the freshmen and the sophomores that are a little bit deeper on the depth chart, where they would like them to come along. It doesn't sound like they're ready to go out there and dominate. Woods is ready to go and play wherever you need him on the defensive line. So, anything else on this game? Any bold predictions that are maybe not betting related, as we'll have our lock show on Thursday?
This could be a Michael Williams breakout game.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Georgia's really high on him. Everything that I've read is that they're using him more as like a rusher, moving him around a little bit less. I forgot the name of the dude on the other side, but they like him as kind of more of a chess piece. Walker? Jalen Walker. Yeah.
Yeah.
This could be a Michael game.
Who does Oregon play? Idaho?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. My bold prediction is that by Sunday or Monday, Carson Beck will once again be the favorite to win the Heisman over Dylan Gabriel. Because they'll have a big game against Clemson while nobody will have watched Dylan Gabriel against Idaho.
Did you guys happen? This is off topic. Did you guys see what FanDuel's doing with the
where they make every moment more?
No, not that, but where you can bet teams that aren't playing against each other with their point total.
So this is just good bookmaking by FanDuel.
Yeah.
Offshores, like your local bookie, has had this for maybe a decade. They're just like the fantasy matchups. And I will, without saying who I'm going to take on these, if you have two edges that you think are like very small edges but are probably not bettable, and they actually align on these, it can become a complete edge.
What are your Monte Carlo?
What does Monte Cristo say?
For instance, let's say that I like two team totals, okay?
Yeah.
But not really in love with them. but sort of like two leans combined to become like one decent bet.
Yeah.
Like if you think you have a very small edge on both and they do happen to match those two teams up, like just kind of take a look at your numbers. You're like, that's actually not bad.
Like
Depending on the juice, obviously.
Like a 5% plus 5% edge, which I would take. But I'm just saying for math, like 5% plus 5%, suddenly it's a 10% edge.
I'm betting any and all 5% edges. Yeah.
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 No,
I'm sorry.
I'm
just
like a 1 and a 1.5 equals a 2.5.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stick to the promos that offer any, boosts for any in-state team.